is get the college paid for and help out the family that way.
Why the Marine Corps?
Well, okay, so I'm one of those kids where I tried a lot of things. I was in baseball, played soccer, I was in marching band, all kinds of other things, and I really liked being in like winning organizations, and kind of the Marine Corps stood out to me as something that was just a notch above, and I wanted to be part of that. And the other thing was, coming from marching band, the Marine Corps has a really awesome drum and bugle corps. I mean, they showcase them; they're everywhere. And I think it was the end of my sophomore year, or I'm sorry, in my sophomore year, we went to a marching tournament, and they had a special guest, which was the drum and bugle corps.
Yeah,
yeah. And when I saw them come out, there was not very many of them compared to the other bands that were coming out, 200, 300 plus. You get this band comes out with like 60 to 80 people, and the sound that came out of them was amazing, the precision. And that's when the thought of the Marines, I was like, I could be in band and a Marine. That's crazy. And so, yeah, that's kind of what stuck to it. And then I saw a recruiter come to the school, and it just kind of added to that. And I was like, that's the way I want to go.
Yeah, it's always something like that, right? Somebody sees a Marine at a parade, they fall in love with the uniform or the attitude when they talk to the recruiter, or in your case, the drum and bugle corps. So I assume you went in and you played in the Marine Corps band.
I didn't.
You didn't? What did you end up doing?
I didn't. So interesting thing was, as I mentioned, I wasn't a very good student. I retook the ASVAB. The first one, my recruiter was like, yeah, most people don't really try. They sit you in this cafeteria, you sit there and you just do it because you have to. And he's like, let's send you back and let's retake it. Retook it, took it serious this time because I really wanted to join the military. And then scores came back and like, hey, brother, here's the book. You can pick any job except this one here, which was like calibrations. I was like, cool. I don't even know what that means. Let's
right. Yeah.
So then he's like, yeah, pick a job. And he just look through it, take your time. And I mean, I didn't get very far. I just kind of flipped through, and what had sparked my interest was he told me I did really well, which I've never been told that with regards to education or my intelligence. And I was like, and the job of Intel, I was like, ooh, let me do this. Maybe I found something like in me. So I signed up for Intel. It was like 02 11 or 31. I think it's 02 11. And went to boot camp. And, my mom, having raised me, my dad wasn't in the picture as much. They needed some basic information on your background before they could do the deep background check. So they were waiting. They were like, hey, we need to have at least this information on your dad so we can kind of do background check, interview him. I wrote letters home, called my aunts, my uncles that may know where he was at the time, and couldn't find him. And so they're like, you got to pick another job. And they're like, you're going to be open contract. They're like, you're going to be open contract. We're going to find a job for you. And I was like, no, this can't be right. And I was like, I'm in boot camp already. I'm like, can I like change my mind? And they're like, no, just pick another job. Here comes the book again. And this time, and I'm already in boot camp. So I'm, sitting upright and I'm looking for a job. And then I see flames. I was like, oh, what's that? And because at this point, I'm like, I'm going all out. Like, it's going to be explosions. It's going to be this and that, right? So I'm like, forget that Intel stuff. And I'm looking, and it's firefighting. And I was like, oh, cool. I didn't know you could be a firefighter in the Marine Corps. And so I picked that field. They guaranteed me the field, the 7,000 field, which included two jobs, the firefighting and what's called an expeditionary airfield technician. Essentially building airfields out of, in the middle of nowhere, catching airplanes. And went to boot camp, and coin toss, and I lost the coin toss, and I ended up as an expedition airfield technician, which I don't regret at all. It was a great job. But that's the job I started with for the first about 8 years of my career.
That's really cool, man. I'm just curious why the Marine Corps didn't start the background check before you shipped to boot camp. Like, it just seems counterintuitive to me. I guess, when did you join?
So 2000.
Okay, so they weren't really trying to put bodies in at that point. I joined in '03, and it's really striking to me. I wanted to be a Marine for a long time. I was dead set on it. And the reason I didn't become a Marine is because they couldn't guarantee me a job. And it was really funny because all I ever wanted to be was infantry. I knew that from from early on, and they couldn't even guarantee me that. And I was like kind of blown away in '02 when I joined. So it's cool that you got to pick your job. It sucks that they couldn't do the background check, but it sounds like what your job was is what we would have called Pathfinder in the Army. It's just a school that you go to when you get in and you do the same thing. It's just a skill identifier. So they're embedded in the units. You don't do that as a full-time job. Obviously, if the need arises, you will go do it. So I'm going to say you were a Pathfinder, and that's really cool. You answer the questions that come on, whatever, right? It says you rose through the ranks pretty quickly. So how high did you get in the enlisted side of things?
Yeah. So, I started at the bottom. I didn't have any extras. Like, my recruiter didn't promise me E2 upon graduation boot camp. I just, from the bottom. I didn't know any of that extra stuff until I was in. I was like, really? They could have gave me this or that. And, you don't know that stuff. So started from the bottom. And then, like I said, the military just clicked with me. And I rose through the ranks pretty quick. I got a meritorious, actually, I got my promotion to E2 on schedule, nothing extra. But during my MOS school, my job training, honor grad there, and they got me a promotion to E3, a Lance Corporal. And then shortly thereafter, 9/11 kicked off, went overseas, got promoted to E4 to corporal out in Afghanistan, which is pretty cool to get promoted out there. And then made it to sergeant, and then quickly there was a lot of people after. So you probably remember this. There was a stop loss.
Oh yeah.
You're right. So no
Oh
one was
yeah.
allowed out. So there was just a concentration of people. When they removed the stop loss, it allowed a lot of people to flush out. A lot of people that said, the military's not for me. You had staff NCOs, E6s that, also wanted out. They're like, yeah, this ain't for me. We had a nice big rush of promotions that came, and that got me into the E6 zone pretty quick, and got my first look at promotion, got selected. And so I made it to E6. I so bad wanted to be a gunnery
A
sergeant. And the
gunny.
Marine Corps
Yeah.
is like really cool. But at the time, I started becoming very critical of leadership, and I was like, I could probably do this much better. So you start looking at, well, how can I affect change? Well, be the change. So I, at that time, our jobs, we work directly for chief warrant officers, and our jobs are very technical, and you can't put a brand new lieutenant that doesn't know much in charge of a very technical job like firefighting or building airfields. So chief warrant officers are why they're in our field. But I really wanted to do that. I was like, man, that looks like a cool job. He's on his own schedule. He's on his own program, and in the Marine Corps, like chief warrant officers are like unicorns, right? You rarely see them.
Same in the Army. You don't see warrant officers,
You don't
right?
see them.
Unless, well, the pilots, right? But that doesn't count.
Yeah, a little bit different for them. And so I applied for warrant officer, and everybody told me, oh, you won't. It takes years. It takes about 3-4 submissions to finally get a serious look. So I was like, that's not going to stop me. Let me get my first look now. So I almost didn't apply because I had only been in for 7 years. And when I read the order, it said you had to be in for at least 8 years. So I was like, well, maybe it's not my year. But then when I reread it, looked at the fine print, it said 8 years by the time of appointment. So if you get selected, if you get appointed, and you go to the training, you get promoted or pinned there. That's when you have to have 8 years. And when I did the math, I was like, I make a cut. So I put it in, and everyone's like, we had 3 others. At that point, I was already teaching at my MOS school. So I was in the presence of like 7 or 8 different people from my MOS, all the smartest guys in our MOS. And so I had a lot of great mentors up there. a lot of great examples. And results come back, and all three of us that submitted from the schoolhouse got selected. So
So
that,
probably like divine intervention there with the stop loss being lifted, a lot of outflow, of positions leaving. It's probably all the stars just aligned for you to get picked up the first time.
I think it all happens for a reason. Yeah, man. It was like magic came together.
So what was that like for you? Largely, I imagine it's like starting over from the bottom again, right?
It
Because that was
is.
always a turnoff. I put in a warrant packet when I was in twice to go fly. Obviously, that was never going to happen because my eyesight is too bad. I was just kind of holding out hope for technology to change. And the second time I did get picked up, but they were like, "You have to be a BMO," and I was like, "Nope, not going to do that. I'll stay an infantry guy. I'm not going to be a battalion motor officer as a warrant officer." Even though those guys, yeah, I can remember distinctly when I was out processing, I needed his signature, and I couldn't find him for like 3 weeks. The dude's just never there, like ever.
Yeah, the elusiveness is something that also kind of turned me off. I'm like, they should be here. Like, I know, like, you own your time at that point. You got to be at meetings, this and that, but really all day, like, there's no way.
Did you find that it was actually that way? That's why what's the reason behind the scarcity of a warrant officer's presence, if you will, in a unit?
Yeah. This is a great segue into this whole conversation regarding like entrepreneurism and business, because what you don't realize when you are an E5 or below is you feel like you're just kind of a worker bee, lower level supervisor. When you start getting into the staff NCO ranks, E6, E7, E8, and even onto the lower officer ranks, you realize, holy shit, like I'm running a small business. You're like every aspect, and by that time you've probably ran your supply section, your fiscal section, like you've looked at every aspect, because as people move, they're like, hey, you're decent at what you do, let's put you over here now because
Yeah,
we need someone
figure it
decent.
out. Yep.
Yeah, figure it out. And they're going to put some competent people in places, and so you get to move around a lot, and you get to look at the administrative piece, managing people, just running day-to-day operations. So it's one of those things where it was scary at first because you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. But the cool thing about warrant officer, and this is what young lieutenants should really pay attention to, is your first staff NCOs that work with you directly underneath you, they're your saviors. They've been there, they've done that. And even for a new warrant officer, they are there to help you because they're still looking, they're still hungry to get promoted. So they're not going to let anything fail.
Right.
If anything, they're going to make sure it succeeds because they're putting their stamp on it. And they report to you. They want to keep you happy, so they shield you from as much of the BS that happens in the, But as a warrant officer, you're still privy to what goes on. You hear the conversations, and you're not totally oblivious to what's going on. Back in the corners and where inventory is supposed to be getting done, but it's not getting done, and there's people chilling, sleeping. So what's happening, but yeah, that's the scary part, is just kind of knowing what's out there, but knowing where the line should be, where, that's not my territory. Let them have their fun.
Yeah. So what were the main differences in leading as a warrant officer versus leading as an enlisted guy?
Oh, they were huge. The differences are huge. And I don't know how far up this occurs in the enlisted side, but when you're on the enlisted side, there is a level of responsibility that still exists above you. And what I mean is, you're in charge of, let's say, a sergeant. You're in charge of this squad here, and we're going to task you to take them out and go and do this job, this little task. You're in charge of them, but at the end of the day, you're part of a mission set. You're not you're not in charge of the whole mission or the organization that you're running. As a warrant officer, you're the last line of
That's
defense.
it. You're the backstop.
Responsibility. So you own everything that happens in and around and beneath you. It's different as a sergeant. You can be like, well, I told that guy, and it's not my fault. I told that guy. You cannot use that excuse as an officer.
Yeah.
You told them, but what did you do to follow up?
Right. Did you go put hands on and check behind and make sure it's getting done? I think that pretty much sums it up. Let's move into 21 years of service, and it's time for you to retire and get out. That comes with its own unique set of problems, and the first one is largely, and I think you'll agree with this in the work that you do, the loss of identity and sense of purpose. Those are the two like biggest things that I've put my finger on talking to a bunch of transitioning veterans and doing this show is those are the big things. And obviously we can get into how to avoid all those things later, but did you actually deal with those things first?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't think there's anybody that doesn't. There are probably there are a few, and I'll quickly name those. The few that don't really experience that are the few that are able to make not a name but a profession of what they did, and then it becomes a civilianized role. So they're still in the military; they're just not wearing the uniform. They can grow the beard, they can do this, they can do that. You're right. So it's those are the few that I think don't experience
You
what
have those, and then you have those who have started some kind of business and grown that while they're in. My sister's a prime example. Her and her husband are both, they're not retired. They just got out as majors in the Air Force, and they have a real estate empire, right? So they bought a bunch of houses at every duty station they would go to that would compound, right? And so now, largely when she walked away at 10 years, it's like, why are you getting out? And she's like, I just want to manage the real estate stuff. I don't want to be Air Force anymore. So like the two types of people, I agree with you. Those are the two types of people: the people that had foresight and knowledge and education and how to start and run a business, and then those people who basically just carry over their military job into civilian world.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Going back to my experience, and I want to give you kind of force or a little bit of insight as to why I got out. I once I crossed the threshold of, I was going to do 4 years and get out. That
Right.
was my plan. 4 years, get out, pay for college, not put any more stress on my mom, come back, and the only reason she signed the waiver for me to enlist was that I told her I was going to go to college. So long story short, she ended up, passing away while I was about 4 or 5 years in, and I didn't uphold that promise yet. I stayed in the military, and I was towards the end of my career. I was like, I haven't fulfilled that promise to her. So I started doing the online college thing and everything like that. However, so if you recall, I joined in 2020. I'm sorry, in 2000. So
2000. Yeah.
in 2020 was when I could retire. Well, look back at history. Where were we? It was
Yeah.
COVID.
Not in a great place at all.
I was in California.
Oh,
So on top of that, it's COVID. I'm in one of the most strictest, one of the strictest places to experience COVID. And then the other factor was I have 4 kids. They're all 2 years apart. My oldest was in eighth grade, finishing up seventh grade. And I said to my wife, I said, if we're going to get out, I want my kids to experience. Both my wife and I both were born and raised in one spot. We had the same set of friends. My daughter at that point had been to 8 schools. So all the moving and the transition changes from elementary to middle school, they all timed out perfectly, 8 schools. And we said, you know what? We want her to have some lifelong friends. So once she reaches high school, I think that's it. Wherever we are, that's where we stay. Well, we were in California. It was COVID, and was like, this isn't the
we're
place.
not staying here.
They just did a whole year remote, and it sucked. My son did horrible. Um, so we made that decision that it was a time, and it was 21 years in, and we made our move to Austin, Texas, and one of the best states to experience COVID, right? With regards to your opinion on things, a lot of freedom, flexibility here, and we've been loving it. My kids are growing; they're great. But back to your initial question, the looking at how when you transition, that meaning, that purpose, that's I think you've hit it right on the head, and I think it's exactly what's going on. Is a lot of our problems. You could say, oh, it's homelessness. It's not being able to find a job. At the root of it, though, the root of it is loss of hope, loss of community, loss of a feeling of belonging. And then, it's just one of those things where your identity. You were this for so long. People looked at you. You were a superhero. It's funny. It's like watching that movie Megamind, and you have that superhero that retires, right? He goes through a phase. It's even in that cartoon. He goes through a phase, and it's just like one of those things where I think everybody experiences it.
Yeah, and it really is because, my case, I joined at 17 years old. So from 17 to 30, my whole identity is infantry Adam, right? Like go to war 4 times, be the best infantry guy you could be. That's it, right? That's all I knew. And I was a career guy. I was going to a minimum of 22. That's where I was headed, so I still had largely, 10 years left, and my career comes to a halt. And I've done nothing to prepare myself at all whatsoever. I didn't network. I didn't make friends outside of the military largely. Was really against that because, I truly joined the Army. I liked the idea of being in a new duty station every 2 or 3 years. Like I thought that was really cool, right? Especially growing up in small farm town Indiana, I wanted to see the world. And so I largely didn't make it a point to make civilian friends in one location because I'm either going to be deployed or I'm going to be moving or whatever. Now, that's not how my career worked. I deployed a lot, but I only got 2 duty stations in 13 years. So, didn't pan out the way I wanted it to. Also, kind of affected my stance on a lot of things with, being deployed as an infantry guy over 4 times, like statistically probably shouldn't be here. So didn't really pay attention to the money side of things because don't know if I'm coming home kind of situation. And that's just a little like insight into the way that I was thinking and why I was so unprepared in the transition. And I assume it's still bad. I know that it's bad. I don't even know why I'm going to ask you this question, but what did the Marine Corps do to help you prepare for the transition?
That's funny because that's part of why we're doing what we do now with the Veteran Development Group. But, when I look at what the military does with regards to a transition assistance program,
It's not
very,
much.
it's
Yeah.
very much a check in the box. And I say that because as long as you say, well, we do something, nobody can say you do nothing.
Right.
Military, it's like, well, let's introduce them to the concepts and the different things that they need to consider when transitioning. When I back during my first enlistment, had a lot of guys that were affected by the stop loss, and when the stop loss was lifted, some of them had the opportunity to go to a transition assistance program. It was done within the last month of them transitioning out. So you get this fire hose effect of information. It's all wave top, and none of it is taught by anybody that has experienced it.
Right.
You have spouses of active duty militaries teaching some of this stuff, and you're like, you guys haven't even like. I'm sorry, but you're just reading off a sheet of paper. You haven't been through this, and neither has your husband. So I think definitely it's one of those things where transition assistance can only be effective if it's done by people that have been there and done that.
I agree with that, man. And I think one of the biggest problems that you alluded to is it's all surface level stuff. It's crammed into such a short amount of time, drinking from the fire hose. There are a lot of good resources. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that there's not a lot of good resources. I mean, my experience was a little bit different in the med board process, particularly in 2015, because the Army was in a weird freaking spot where they were trying to push all the combat guys out, a lot of turnover. So everything was in shambles. I think my transition, my ACAT process was like a week long. The only thing I showed up for in person was to write the resume, and it was a handshake. You take this resume, good luck finding a job kind of thing. So I know they give quality resources, but they don't really. And this applies to the business world, and I'm pretty adamant about this. It's like they don't give you an opportunity to take action on any of those resources, and that's the problem, right? So what happens is you're inundated with this flood of resources and information. It all sounds great. Your idea wheel starts turning, and then you get analysis paralysis because there's so much you don't know what to take action on, and you don't have time to really take any action on any of it. And the creation of this show, the long-term goal is to be a skill bridge program to help veterans transition into entrepreneurship. I really think that should be done over at, I'm shooting for like 6 to 12 months of like just letting them be in a program that I've created that I know works and can set them up for success if they're working hard or whatever. Obviously, this is a 10-year play or more, whatever that looks like. But I think that's what you're doing with Veteran Development Group, and we're going to get to that. But in the transition, that is the biggest problem is just surface level throwing a bunch of shit at you and trying to get any of it to stick. And so, that's not effective whatsoever at all, clearly, or we wouldn't be seeing the problems that we're seeing. Is that something you agree with?
I agree. I totally agree. And again, going back to my point of it's kind of a check in the box is, and it's not a knock on the military at all, the Department of Defense, because we want the Department of Defense to be able to fight wars and win wars.
Right. Yeah. Focused on the mission, not.
So it's not a knock on what they're doing. To me, it's just one of those things that let them do the main thing, let them do it right, and we do for the most part. And that's what I think the Skill Bridge program has been developed to allow third parties to be able to pick up some of that slack and make the experience even better.
And there's a little bit of a caveat to that because there's a lot of Skill Bridge programs out there, and there's a lot of shitty ones out there that will basically check a block. They're really just trying to recruit you is all into some mind-numbing shitty corporate job that you're going to fucking hate, and they don't tell you that. But there's some really good ones out there, and the one that comes to mind is Allegiant Vets Skill Bridge. They're the ones that gave me the opportunity to present and talk to veterans to really validate the idea of the path back to purpose being entrepreneurship. I've heard no complaints, very few complaints from that program, and largely the complaints I heard were from people not taking action on the things that they were learning. So, yeah, man, I think you're absolutely right. Like, let the military be focused on what they are focused on, but they could swing some of that budget to ensuring that we transition smoothly the right way. Also, like, I'm not going to let them off the hook on that because they're largely responsible for creating us.
In many ways, yes.
So how was your transition? What did you struggle with the most?
Yeah, so I would say coming from the warrant officer ranks, and I'm going to say the experience of an enlisted transitioning out into the military life and a officer transitioning out are two totally different experiences. That largely is in part because of the circles that they find themselves in.
Correct.
It's networking, right? It's
Yep.
the people who are around the most. So if you're an enlisted and you almost have no choice who you hang around, right? You're put in this squad. Those are your 4 people. Those are your 5 people. In the officer world, you're your own independent thing. You find your network. You're like, hey, look, I attribute myself, some of the characteristics. I like these people. I want to be like that. So anyway, the transition out for me was somewhere in between because I worked with a lot of enlisted, a lot of, E7s, E8s, and E9s that are like, hey, look, I've heard this, this, and this, talk to this person, talk to that person. They're all giving you pointers. And then on the other side, on the officer side, especially now I was a chief warrant officer 4. So my peer group was like majors, lieutenant colonels, right? And then colonels I could talk to, but they weren't my peers. And they would link you up with people. Hey, this person just, they got out last year and they're doing amazing. Talk to them. They're in this corporate, sphere. And so the transition for me with regards to, so what I got that was beneficial from the enlisted side was totally different from the officer side. From the enlisted side, I got a lot of context as to, hey, these are the things that you should be doing now to make sure that you get all the things you merit when you get out. And what I'm talking about is VA disability benefits, educational benefits, all these things that you rightfully have earned over your time. How to get those, how to make sure you're lined up so that transition happens seamlessly. And it worked out for me. I didn't wait. There was no delay between me getting any of my retirement benefits, whether it's my retirement pay or VA disability. Like, there was no delay. I was
able to. So you were out one day and you were getting paid by the VA the next day? Because I had to wait 90 days.
So I had 90 days on the books with regards to
Terminal
leave,
leave. Yeah.
terminal leave, right? So November 10th, which is the Marine Corps' birthday, I retired on the Marine Corps' birthday. I'll never forget that day now. Um, that's when I got out. My actual retirement date was March 1st. So from November to March 1st was I was still getting paid as I was still being in. I already had a job lined up. Again, from my enlisted network, I was able to get a corporate job as a financial auditor with LPL Financials, a Fortune 500 company, and and I was already working there. November 27th, I think I started. And so I was working and started a new thing. So my transition time was very minimal. I mean, I made the drive from California over to Texas, and then I started working, and it's all remote, so it was great. Um, and then March comes around, that paycheck falls off, but my retirement pension takes effect,
Automatically kicked in.
so automatically kicked in, and then I already knew what my rating was, so I was able to get those benefits, and then I would say do the homework to figure out where you want to go. One thing that I didn't know that, well, I did know, but it didn't hit me that this is what's going to happen is in Texas, the Hazelwood Act, right? If you enlist in the military from Texas and you go to the military and you get out, so long as you got an honorable discharge, you can go to school for free in Texas.
Really?
Yeah. So I wasn't able to take advantage of that because I enlisted while in California. But out of 4 kids, I have at least 2, possibly 3 that are really set on going to the military. As long as they go to school in Texas, it's paid for.
Right.
So that's like one of the things that it's just like one of those blessings, that additional blessings. Texas is a great state for any veteran. You can drive down the toll roads for free. You get, you pay just a couple bucks for your vehicle registration, property taxes, depending on your VA disability. I mean, it's a great place.
Yeah, Florida's pretty good too. I wish they would take the tolls idea. That'd be a good one. Because every time I have to go to Orlando, which is where the VA is, it costs me like $8 in tolls, which is, I mean, whatever. It's negligible. I don't go over there a whole bunch, but like it'd still be cool. Registration's great. I think they do like a 5-year registration here. When I lived in Washington, you get disabled veteran plates for free one time. They're permanent forever. That's really cool. Florida here, it's really great because I pay no property taxes and it covers a lot. I think my property taxes this year were like $4,600. I don't have to pay those. So that's awesome. Yeah, man, there's a lot of benefits out there. And I want to take this opportunity, like for those of you that are listening, don't pay anybody to do this shit for you. Like just stop being fucking lazy, invest a couple of hours into figuring out how to do this stuff because it's really not that hard. And it's the same game you played when you were in. It's still government red tape. You're going to get frustrated filling out the forms that you need to fill out, getting a response. And they're like, you need this form. Just play the game. Just play the game and save yourself some money. Don't let these predatory companies, Re-Medical, I'm talking to you, get you in this position where they're going to take some money to maybe get you some more benefits. Don't do that. There's a quick Google search. Military.com will probably come up first and tell you what benefits you're entitled to and what state you live in. And I'd say it's about 99.9% accurate. I think, like really just do some self digging here and you can figure this out on your own. And you can use, your terminal leave as an opportunity to do that because 90 days of terminal leave is a long time. It may not seem like it, but I'm fairly certain, I think, Alex, you probably got bored doing that, right? Like in 90 days, you're like, man, I need to go back to work.
My entire career, I think the longest I've ever taken for leave was when I came back from deployment. But regular leave, I've taken 2 weeks, and after week 1, I'm like, I'm ready to go back.
It's time to go back, man. I was the same way. Same way. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, this is awesome, man. So let's move into the entrepreneurship side of things. What came first? Was it the business consulting or was it the development of the veteran development group? And what sparked your entrepreneurial journey here? Like, what was it for you? You had the corporate job. I don't know if you still have the corporate job. If you do, good for you. I'm anti-job. I've disqualified myself from the workforce. I'm largely unemployable. I like it that way because it forces me to continue to do what I do here and find the success with it. So where did your journey start with all of that?
Yeah, so I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset. Some of my plaques, upon leaving duty stations always say like, hey, now we're not going to hear about the next widget or idea you have, like it was always ideas coming from me. And I like that. I'm very much someone that likes to put pieces, of the puzzle together and figure things out. But towards the end of my, career, when I was in San Diego, I I came across so I like cutting hair. It's I've always cut my hair, saved myself thousands of dollars cutting my hair. Not only that, three boys and I cut their hair, so we save a lot of money there. And and I've always liked the concept. When you go into a barbershop, like a real old traditional style barbershop, it's
My
just so
favorite.
cool.
My favorite.
Yeah. So I was like, I can do this better. Like I can. There's things I'm sitting in there. I was like, here's what I would do different. Here's what I would do different. Long story short, a little plug to them. Pappy's Barbershop out in San Diego. Mark Bennett, he's the owner of Pappy's Barbershop and conceptualized it. It's a throwback to the old school barbershops. It's really cool. And
does it have the pole?
Oh, it has, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
The black and white floors.
Yes.
The like weird pistachio colored walls with the accents, old gold leaf lettering everywhere. It's really cool.
Never know what kind of conversation you're going to walk into when you walk in there. That's what I'm talking about.
So as I was getting ready to transition, I was like, I know I want to open my own business. And I was like, a barbershop would be cool because I already know how I could do this different. And so during my studies, I conceptualized a place called Cuts and Coffee. Essentially a barbershop and a coffee shop kind of rolled into one, but in a compact place. So, with that, I left the military thinking I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to figure it out somehow. And then when I was approached with the opportunity to be an auditor, I was like, well, this is cool. Maybe, it's remote. So that, let me try this. And I did it. I did that for about a year before they said, hey, we really like your leadership style. We really like that you're attentive to people's thoughts and feelings. And as an officer, I kind of dealt more with the personality side of things. So I did that for a year, and then they're like, hey, we want to promote you to manager. There's a spot, why don't you apply? So I did. And then I did that for a little while, and everything that I didn't like about my position in the Marine Corps all came back. And it was like being accountable for other people's actions and performance writing, all that stuff. I was like, this is why I left the military. So I said, I can't do this anymore. So that's when the entrepreneurism kind of came back. And I was like, well, you know what? Let me look into a couple things. I wanted an easy, simple tech business that eliminates some of the major expenses as a business owner. Because learning what the barbershop, what Mark told me was your biggest headaches are going to be your employees and then your lease for your building, unless you own it. Those things always change and fluctuate. Everything else you can keep constant, but those things are your headaches. So I said, all right, well, let me come up with a business that has no employees and has no storefront. And I came up, the opportunity for like a merchant services business came to mind, which is, hey, you're in networking, you get yourself out there, you find people that need cheaper processing.
Yeah, payment processing, right? Yeah.
And you get them be that local point of contact, get them what they need, and it's residual in nature. Once you set it up, you get some residuals and you get bigger accounts, bigger residuals, but ultimately you're a local face. And then I added AI integrations to websites and CRM solutions. So it is a small tech business. It's called Fidelis Merchant Solutions. And I did that for a little bit. With that, I became very busy with networking. I found networking groups in and around here. And then the Chamber of Commerce got in with them too, started helping out, became an ambassador for them.
How is the chamber in Texas? Do you have to pay to be a member?
Yeah, so the chamber is a nonprofit organization. You pay an annual due. Here, it varies city to city, but our dues is $300 a year, and there's about 350 businesses, different levels though, different tiers of of membership. Higher the tier, the more perks and benefits, the more shout outs you get online. But for the most part, it's not a bad thing. They host networking events, local live events, and it gives you opportunities to get out there. I quickly
That's more
became
palatable than the one here in Florida. They want like minimum, it's like $1,500 for the year, and I'm like, we'll wait until we have more MRR before we go and
yeah,
join that, because I don't see a benefit of it for like what I'm doing. I'm sure it's super beneficial in the networking aspect of things, but I'm really good at doing that without having to pay somebody. So there's this really cool site. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Alignable, and it'll connect you with everybody that's a local business owner. And
yeah.
It's great.
I'm gonna try that out.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's free. I don't pay for the profile. I've been to a couple local networking events, been pretty fruitful. It's really cool. Just have to build more time in my schedule to get to more of those events. But you don't necessarily have, the point of that is you don't necessarily have to spend money up front to join the chamber. The chamber is not the only avenue for networking events. And one of my favorite things is networking. So I'm so glad that we're spending time on this, because I used to think that network is your net worth is like a cliche saying, until I really started building a network and understood the opportunity that comes from having a network. Oh man, like it's like, and it's free. It's free to do. You don't have to pay money to network, period. End of story.
That's business that comes to me is the referrals. I did nothing to go find them. I spent no time, but somebody spoke well and highly of my service, that they felt that they were going to pass it on to somebody else. I I get contacted. They're like, hey, John referred me to you. I've been looking for this and that, and I mean, and then the deal's done, and it's such a great feeling knowing that you're able to affect people's businesses and their revenue, their bottom line, to an extent that they're going to share that information along with other people.
Hell yeah, man. So the first thing was setting up this little tech company where you're doing some basic automations and some consulting. How did Veteran Development Group come about?
Yeah. So I was, leaving the military, you have a lot of great friends that you keep in contact with, lifelong friends. You find them inspirational in some aspect where you're like, these are really good people. You just keep up with them. And one of my friends, Juan, he was actually my first. He was in charge of me. He was a sergeant when I first got to one of my duty stations, and I worked for him. And then when I made that transition to warrant officer, that role flipped, and then he worked for me. But he was that first FNCO that I had that I was like, this guy is going to teach me what I need to be doing as a warrant officer. And sure enough, he did. We did great things together. We both won simultaneous leadership awards, one on the enlisted side for him and one on the officer side for me the same year. We maintained the largest expeditionary airfield in the Marine Corps, which is out in 29 Palms, him and I. And we made a lot of things happen. And so in talking to him every now and then, we catch up. He's got a young son, and I've got 4 kids, 4 kids, but my 3 boys. We always talk about our boys, and we said, my kids, I have a couple of them that are going to probably join the military, and I'm going to make sure, like, all the things that I'm learning now that I could have done a little different, that would have made my experience transitioning just a little bit easier. Although I will say, I feel like I maximized my benefits. I really did. I don't feel like there was anything else that I could have done different. Everything happened seamlessly. I did it right somehow. And that doesn't happen for everybody.
I was going to say you're an outlier, because most of them don't do it right, and they get frustrated and they give up. I mean, I'm kind of one of them, right? Applying for CRSC, it took me 5 years to get combat-related special compensation, which is an extra, I think for me, it's close to $1,400 a month tax-free. Like, money I was entitled to for deploying 4 times, and paid out by your branch, not the VA. So that's the caveat there. But, and that's where I came up with that idea. Like, don't pay people to do this shit for you. Just play their game. Because if you play their game, it's a matter of time before you wear them out and they award you what you're entitled to anyway. It took 5 years. So what? That came with a $96,000 back pay check. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
That,
that was,
that
it actually should have been a lot more, because with CRSC, they pay you back to your retirement date up to 6 years. I had been out 8 years at this point, right? So it really should have been closer to like almost 200 grand, but whatever, it is what it is.
yeah. Yeah. So in those conversations with Juan, I was like, I'm going to make sure that they do this, they do that. And while they're in, that they're at least, for me, I procrastinated with online education. You can get a whole degree if you just do it one class at a time consistently. You can get it done in 4 years easily. So there was all these things that I said, one of the things that I was able to take advantage of because of COVID, because of kind of the stall or the lull in operations during COVID, was we had time and opportunity to focus on other things. And what I started to focus on was, well, if I'm going to get out, I should probably start going and talking to medical, letting them know, oh, my wrist issues, my plantar fasciitis, all these other things that you can't just get out and say, oh, I have this. They're going to be like, well, it's not tied to your military service because you didn't report anything. So it's all those little things to create a nexus between your military service and how you entered the service and how you exited the service, right? So
And
for
I
me,
promise you, shit's going to be broken. They broke you. Let them
yeah.
fix you.
And the best advice I can give to that is, you're not a doctor. Go tell a doctor, let a doctor know, the things that you feel. And then they've seen enough people that they know what normal kind of looks like. And then they know what you look like. So we only know our experience. I have backaches, but to me, oh, that's just a 40-year-old backache. Probably not. I don't know otherwise. Right. So going back to the discussion with Juan was, he's like, yeah, I don't know if my son is going to join, but if he does, yeah, same thing, man. I want to make sure he gets, takes full advantage of all his benefits, every opportunity, and and really make sure he has a good time as well. And we said, well, we should be doing this for like everybody. And then that's when the idea, kind of the light bulb popped. Like, how do we do this? And what better time than now with the technologies we have to be able to reach anywhere on the world and share this information.
The internet's a big place. Yep. So how does Veteran Development Group, what is your approach to all of these things? And I'm only curious, man, I don't look at you as competition. I look at you as, I can't help everybody, right? Like I for a lot of reasons. One, I'm not going to resonate with everybody. They're going to look at me, that dude's a fucking asshole. I don't want to deal with him. My approach may be different than yours, and that doesn't resonate with people, or, I'm too expensive for people at $50 a month or whatever. Like, that's to me an excuse, because they're blowing $50 a month on Starbucks more than likely.
Starbucks,
right?
Red
Yeah.
Bulls.
Yeah. But like, what is your approach? Because like, this is important work. And, the more of us that do this work, the better chance we have to eliminate the suicide epidemic that plagues our community, the better chance that we have to just let vets live better lives and live those lives in accordance with who they are internally, like outside of the military. And I think that's important, because too many of us are wrapped up in that identity of the military, which is causing all of those problems down the road.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And part of our mission is helping the next generation of veterans. So with that is in itself is a selfless thing. The way we do it, the way we do what you just said and affect all veterans, is not, you're not going to do it as an individual. That's what we also have different branches of the military. Each branch does a different thing. Likewise, each veteran that comes out and has this great idea to service veterans in some way, fashion, or form, I will say, yes, there are some that get out and do it for monetary reasons. They all have to feed their families. I get it. But no one by far is doing it to become a multi-billionaire. No one's doing it for that reason. Um, so our stance with the Veteran Development Group, we have a mission to make sure that veterans can transition through education, training, and mentorship. That doesn't mean that we do it all ourselves. What we're looking to do is make sure that veterans have a place, a central repository where they can find the information they're looking for. So on our website, as it's building out right now, there's going to be AI integrated in there. Who's not going to have AI integrated in there? But in our AI, it's going to be a place where you can say, hey, I'm a veteran, I'm homeless. What are some good resources for me in the state of Alabama? That AI will give them the resources, not just give them the link to the resource, but a quick synopsis of what this does and what's different from the other two that it's listed. The other thing is there's, with regards to benefits and organizations like yours, you know, there's going to be a huge fraction of people that they can come to us to find solutions or find options, but ultimately it's probably being serviced very well by someone else. So at that point, it's their repository to say, okay, it's a stopping point, it's a crossroads. It's like, how do I get to this place? And then we can say, well, we've vetted a couple of these, organizations. Here's where you go. Here's who you talk to, and then it gets the ball rolling in that direction.
Dude,
But
this is so cool because this is the same approach I'm taking with my community, the Stronghold. I'm partnering with people that I've vetted, that I've had meetings with, that I've talked to push them. The one that comes to mind is Kaylin and Julie are in the insurance, kind of helping personal finances, tax-free vehicles, the insurance space, right? And I have a background in the scummy side of insurance. So Julie's so hard trying to recruit me for her team. She loves everything that I'm doing and knows that I could be successful. I'm just so bitter about my experience with that industry. But now when people join the Stronghold, if they're interested in doing that for others, I have a pipeline, a referral pipeline straight to quality people who are going to make sure they get trained the right way and don't have a bad experience in that industry like I had. And guess what? They get to own their own thing, right? And build a team underneath them with residual income, like you were talking about in the payment processing space. It's the same philosophy in the insurance space, right? You join a team, you make some sales, you get to a certain level, you start recruiting other people, you start taking a percentage of the business that they write, and that becomes more residuals for you, and then you build out this incredible team. Same payment processing space. I've got another pipeline to franchise ownership because I knew nothing about it. And I was getting a ton of questions of franchise ownership. So I've had several meetings with these people. They put together a webinar for me that lives in my community. If you're interested in starting a franchise, come to the community, watch that video, reach out to these people, and they will walk you through the process of owning your own franchise and, benefit to me. Oh, by the way, I get a kickback. You know what I mean? Like because we can all, I guess my point is like, we're taking the same approach. We can all help each other out. We don't have to compete with each other.
yeah, I had a conversation with somebody that it's a nephew of mine. Well, it's like a cousin, but he's quite a bit younger. He's going through fatherhood for the first time and so excited about it. And I told him, that the interesting thing about fatherhood is so many people are going to approach you and say, hey, do this, make sure you do that as a parent, this and that. But it's like when you first get your license and you start driving to school, everybody can say, hey, here's how you get to school. But your journey is unique. The way you get to school from where you live to school, no one else experiences that. It's different. You're also in a different vehicle, you're a different time of day. Like your experience is very unique. And I think the same thing with this, like to your point, there's a lot of organizations out there. People like different types of leaders as well. They resonate with different types of leaders. So the information can be the same, but it's delivered in a different way and you interpret it a different way. So as long as this network of veteran supporting organizations grows, it's such a great tool to get everybody headed down the right path, whatever that is for them, their unique
Dude,
path.
You're so right on that, because in order for us to change what's currently going on in our community, we all have to come together as a community and help everyone, right? Like there's no reason that you and I should compete. Like if somebody joins my community and then they leave, it's not a good fit. First of all, I want to know why they're leaving, what I could do better and implement better in my community. But no hard feelings. I'm losing your $50 a month. I don't care. Let me send you over to Alex, who may be a better fit for you, so you can continue to get information that will help you transition well. Doesn't hurt my feelings. In fact, I'll shake your hand and I'll make the introduction to you, Alex, and I'll wish you well and hope that your transition, that Alex is able to give you something better than I was able to give you.
And
And
if
it's
you
all,
find your way back, great. Well, open arms, man. Welcome
yeah,
back.
right. Like, yeah, of course, man. And it's like, that's the philosophy, right? Like the strategic veteran by and large will never be a $1 billion company, to your point. I'm not in this to make money. However, in order to justify my time and energy that goes into this, I have to charge people something. I have to do that for several reasons: protect my time and energy, but also to ensure that you're investing in yourself. Because if I give you everything for free, you're going to sit there and you're going to do jack shit with it. And you know how I know that? Because I've done that. I've done that to the tune of like $4,000 or $5,000 of courses that I bought to get in there and find out it's just an upsell to the next thing where they're not going to tell me the secret. I quickly lose interest and I don't take any action, right? Like, so if I can do that investing my own money, what do you think is going to happen when I just give you everything for free? I could give you the secret. The secret is, and I'll give you the secret right now, the secret to building anything and getting to where you want to be is to grind and show up every day and fucking love the grind, right? Like there's no shortcut. The shortcut is the work. You have to do the work. So we can give you everything, all the resources. We can give you all the places to go. I can hold your hand and make a Loom video and give you step-by-step click directions on how to do this. But unless you're going to put in all the work that goes into that and maintaining those systems, you're never going to go anywhere.
Absolutely. And to solidify your point, because you made great points there. When you invest in yourself, even if it's $50, you take it so much more serious. When you invest nothing, you get it for free, like you said, you may put it off, and then 3 months later you forgot about it.
Dude, a prime example, I have a folder on my desktop of all the free lead magnets, offers, different things I've signed up for that I thought in the beginning of my journey were going to help me get it all figured out. I've never even looked at half of that shit. And hindsight's 2020. I should probably go open that folder up and find out how much of that stuff I can turn into my own brand and peddle it back to other people. But also, like, I'm just as guilty of anybody else of it until I got out of my own way and realized the secret is to put your fucking head down and do the work, right? Like, that's it. Invest in yourself, do the work, show up every day. 3 key things. That's the secret.
The other thing I would add to that, to even give it a fourth, is look around you. The 5 people that you find yourself around the most, you're the average of that person, of those 5. So if you really want to change yourself, change your environment.
Yes.
Find people that are doing what you want to do. Call it osmosis, call it whatever. Like, you're gonna pick up on the little things that they do. And it's the little things. It's the attention to detail. It's the organization. All those little things are going to get you closer and closer and closer to your goal. And so it's really just getting yourself around the people that are going to inspire you to get you to the place you want to go.
That's an excellent 4th thing. And I think it might be even the most important, easiest thing to start now. Just start building a network, because that's going to change the environment you're around. You're going to start seeking out people who are where you want to be. You're going to start picking their brains. They're going to make introductions to other people. You're now going to get access to those people. And before you know it, you'll have gone from 92 people to 5,000 people that you have a pool to pull from when you need something, right? I'm currently looking for somebody to do some stuff for the nonprofit. I need a really good explainer video editor. It's as simple as making a post or tapping into my network on LinkedIn and sending a couple of DMs and waiting for a response. And usually you'll get it. You know what I mean? And this is just it, right? You're investing in yourself by talking to other people and changing that environment that you hang around with. If you're still hanging around with your Marine Corps buddies or your Army buddies, and all they want to do is go party and, watch TV or go to the movies and drink, that's what you're going to end up doing 99% of your time. If you're hanging out with, let's just use my situation, for example. have a full calendar of people that I get to record with on a podcast, which led to the nonprofit stuff and a board seat, which led to being introduced to, the owner of a tactical company. And then that led to being introduced to the chief of operations who wants to start an AI automation agency. And I'm all in on that because AI automation is the future. And if you don't use it in your business, you're going to get left behind. So it's a skill I have to learn, but that I can capitalize on. So back to the original point, the strategic veteran may never be $1 billion company, but the opportunities that it's going to create for me will absolutely someday, if I do it the right way, lead to $1 billion company.
Or it will spark somebody that went through your training or mentorship is going to be a billionaire.
And it's so cool. It's so cool when you think about it like that. And I assume that's kind of the long-term goal for Veteran Development Group too, right? Is to create opportunity for others, to build that network, that like-minded community, and then start cherry picking opportunities out of that, because that's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah. Hit the nail right on the head. It's essentially, how do we make tomorrow's veterans better than today? And I'm not saying today's veterans are bad. I'm just saying, how do we make them better? How do we help grow them? And, you said a couple of things here that really resonated with me. When you look at why you're starting an organization, somebody could say, well, selflessly, I'm building it so that my kids can take advantage of it and get everything they need. Yeah, absolutely. My grandkids, my great grandkids, I want everyone to be able to benefit from what we're doing. And part of what we're doing also is not so much training or educating. It's really holding people accountable. You think of the things that you don't want to do, but when you, like going to the gym, but when you have a gym partner, a workout partner, you make yourself do it. So part of that for us is you get a veteran who's successful in their own right, and you pair them up with a couple service members, 3 or 4, that are starting to look at transition and what that looks like. And then you have that person. In the military, no matter at what rank, you go through mentorship. You go through one-on-ones. You take your long-term goals, you break them down into short-term goals. Like, we all have been through this. It's something that you learn inherently. Now you have a veteran who's been there, done that can do that for those young service members, help them break down their goals. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Okay, now let's break that down into tasks. And then help you get there, meet with you every month, 45 days on a 45-minute Zoom call. And you could do this from anywhere in the world. And the fact that you're able to do that, hold someone accountable to their actions, help draw and formulate a plan for them, and then get them the resources they're looking for. So if they're having a hard time finding a resource, jump in and help them find them the resource. And who knows, you may have someone within your network as a veteran that can answer their question. And now you've just created another arm to that network for them.
Dude, we're running the same playbook, brother. This is so cool, man, because, obviously there's a lot of things that you're going to do differently than I do, but it's the same playbook. It's create a community and leverage that community to get the answers to the questions that you and I personally don't know. And that's okay. We're not ever going to know everything, right? Like, ever, right? There's so much to know, like, I have a brand guy and a copywriter on my team. They're working for profits out of what the podcast and the community makes. And I'm cool with that because they do all the shit that I don't want to do. I'm not good at. I've tried. I definitely have tried. But let's just bring people on. Let's leverage the network. Let's give up some profits because I don't need them all anyway. And let's get to where we're going. And then we all benefit from it. And I promise you, the more that you do that and the more you surround yourself with people who are in that mindset, the better everything gets for you. So, dude, this is really awesome, man. I'm excited for you. So if you're listening to this, Veterans Development Group launches, you said, when does
November
it launch?
11th, Veterans
Day. So we're going to try and get this out on Veterans Day for sure. So if you're listening to this and it's Veterans Day, go check out Veterans Development Group. see what Alex has built over there and what's going on. I know I'm going to check it out for sure. Alex, tell everybody how they can find you if they want to reach out for some business consulting, or some of your automation stuff that you got going on in your other business, or just talk to you because you're a cool dude. How can they find you?
Absolutely. I'm always available for any type of consultation as far as personal consultation. I spend a lot of time right now doing that. It's at no cost. I just do it because I want people to get inspired and take action for themselves. Our website for the Veteran Development Group, thevdg.org. So, in the military, we love acronyms. So the vdg.org is where you can find us. We're also on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, either the Veteran Development Group or the VDG. You'll find us on there. Look for our logo. You'll see it. But yeah, so we're excited to go live. And one of the main things that you're going to see from the Veteran Development Group is just information coming at you from experts that are running their own business, started their own ventures, or are executives in their business to be able to deliver. And they're all going to be veterans. They're going to deliver this information, wave top, introductory type information. They're not going to sell you on anything. But if you're interested in learning more, you can absolutely schedule a call with them offline. That'll be separate from what we're doing as a Veteran Development Group. What we're doing is just to educate you, get you to know that these things exist. Let me give you one example really quick. Going back to your financial side of things, is one of the things that you don't really care to learn about, or you hear it but you don't really take it to heart, is investing. Even on the insurance side, right? I was 37 when I first was introduced with the concept of like an IUL, a really good structured IUL.
Yeah.
And I was
Those
like,
are fun.
I wish I would have known this when I was 18 or 19. But part of what we're doing is bringing people on that are experts, that are going to do right by the military member, and they're going to introduce to them the 3 or 4 different scenarios. You're a first term service member, you have 8 to 12 years, you're getting ready to retire. There are different scenarios that you can take advantage of. And now, knowing what I know now, time is the greatest factor there. So if we can get service members to just listen to these concepts and make a decision for themselves, if that's something they're interested in, but they need to be able to see the effects of time over their investment.
Compound interest is cool.
Yeah. So that's one of our goals. Is it's not just when you're transitioning. It starts well before your transition. So when you join the military, one of the most like for sure things is that your military career will end. That is for sure. So the sooner you know that and realize that, you can begin your preparation for that transition and a successful life afterwards.
That's such a great point, man. And we've had several people on this show that say the day you join the Army or whatever branch you join is the day you should start preparing for your transition. And man, I think that's some of the best advice ever, because with guys like you and I out here creating spaces to educate folks, there's no reason that by somebody joining today, September or October 1st, 2024, by October 1st of 2044, when they're going to retire, there's no reason that if we create the things the right way, that they shouldn't just have a seamless transition into business or whatever that looks like for them. And that's the cool part about all of this, man.
I will say that there are a lot of people that re-enlist out of necessity, lack of other options. They didn't take the time, so they're like, well, my best decision right now is sign the re-enlistment paper. It's not that they love the military, they want to, it's just they didn't prepare. So if we can prepare people for what's out there and the options that are out there and available to them, they can make better informed decisions. And maybe the decision is, hey, get as high in the military that in rank, get as high as I can in 20 years, and then transition out after, that to me, looking back, that's the best play, because you get out at 38 years old, you're still very marketable in anything you want to do. You come with a wealth of knowledge and experience, and then you're rewarded with a pension and maybe VA disability benefits. Like, yeah, it's probably the greatest play out there.
I love it, man. Alex, thank you so much for being here today. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, download this, share it with as many people as you can. Help us achieve our goal of reaching 1 million veterans by the time I turn 40, May 9th, 2025. Lofty goal, but there's 20 million veterans in the United States, so I'm fairly certain we can accomplish that. We will see you guys next week with another awesome episode with another strategic veteran entrepreneur. Take care, everybody. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at The Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.